Chosen one, listen to me carefully. What I'm about to share is not for everyone. This message is urgent, and it is sacred. If you are not walking the divine path of God, if your heart is not aligned with truth, faith, and obedience, this message is not meant for you. You can leave now without guilt. But if you are a true follower of God, if you have felt the call on your life since you were young, if you know deep inside that you were chosen for something greater, then this message is for you, and it has reached you at the exact right moment. God has placed this word in front of you because your light has grown stronger and the darkness has noticed. The shadow beings are chasing your light, and yes, Lucifer himself has sent them, not because you are weak, but because you are becoming dangerous to his kingdom. There is a reason you have felt pressure lately. There is a reason resistance has increased. Stay with me until the end, because what you are about to understand will change how you see your life, your struggles, and your spiritual authority forever. Before we continue, chosen ones, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap the bell icon so you don't miss what God is revealing here, and share this message with other chosen ones. And comment 999 below to declare that you are aligned with God's divine purpose and protected by his light.
Why your light threatens the dark realm. Chosen one, you must understand this clearly, or you will misinterpret what has been happening around you. Your light does not threaten the dark realm because you are loud. It threatens it because you are aligned. Darkness is not intimidated by noise. It is disturbed by truth. And truth lives inside you whether you speak or not. Your light is not something you turned on one day. It was placed in you before you were formed. God marked you early. That is why your life has never felt ordinary. Even when you tried to blend in, something about you stood apart. Even when you stayed silent, people reacted. Even when you meant no harm, your presence stirred discomfort. That was not coincidence. That was spiritual contrast. The dark realm operates on distortion, confusion, and spiritual sleep. You, on the other hand, carry clarity. And clarity is dangerous to systems built on lies. When you walk into a room, you don't have to preach. Your discernment alone disrupts what is hidden. Your awareness exposes what prefers to remain unseen. This is why certain people feel uneasy around you without knowing why. This is why some connections collapse for no logical reason. Your light forces things to reveal themselves. Lucifer does not fear those who claim power. He studies those who carry it quietly. He understands spiritual law. He knows that light aligned with God does not need permission to operate. It simply does, and that is what threatens him. Not your confidence, not your words, but your obedience. Darkness cannot manipulate what is submitted to God. You must release the idea that you are under attack because you are doing something wrong. That belief weakens you. The pressure you feel is not punishment. It is recognition. Hell does not waste resources on those without assignment. Resistance is not proof of failure. It is confirmation of direction. Your light threatens the dark realm because it restores others without effort. People begin to question their own lives around you. They reflect. They awaken. Some are inspired. Others feel exposed. Both reactions come from the same source. Your presence activates truth, and truth destabilizes false peace. This is why your path has been narrow. God protects what carries influence. If you had blended in easily, your light would have dimmed. Instead, you were isolated, refined, misunderstood. That was not rejection. That was preservation. Darkness tries to rush what God slows down. God tries to protect what darkness wants to corrupt early. The dark realm thrives on emotional wounds, unhealed trauma, and unresolved identity. Your healing threatens that supply. Every time you choose forgiveness instead of bitterness, you starve darkness. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you weaken its grip. Every time you trust God when circumstances say otherwise, you release authority. That is why attacks often come when you are calm, not chaotic, when you are peaceful, not desperate, when you are stable, not broken. Darkness prefers reaction. It loses control when you respond with wisdom. Your stillness confuses it. Your patience frustrates it. Your silence dismantles it. You see, light does not fight darkness the way humans imagine. Light simply exists, and darkness cannot coexist with it. This is why the dark realm works through delay, distraction, and doubt. It cannot destroy your light, so it tries to keep you busy, tired, and questioning yourself. It whispers lies, not screams threats. It wants you to forget who you are. But chosen one, your light has matured. That is why the resistance feels different now. It is more subtle, more psychological, more strategic. Lucifer sends shadows when brute force no longer works. He sends confusion when fear fails. He sends weariness when temptation no longer attracts you. And still, you are standing. Your light threatens the dark realm because it carries divine memory. You remember God even in dry seasons. You remember truth when lies sound convincing. You remember purpose when the world tells you to settle. That memory alone is powerful. It anchors you. Do not underestimate how rare that is. Most people numb themselves to survive. You chose awareness. Most people trade truth for comfort. You chose growth. Most people run from God when life becomes difficult. You leaned closer. That choice sealed something in the spiritual realm. It marked you. This is why you have survived things that should have broken you. This is why your heart is still soft when it should be hardened. This is why you feel deeply but do not collapse. God preserved your sensitivity because it is part of your calling. Darkness tried to turn it into weakness. God turned it into discernment. Your light threatens the dark realm because it cannot be owned. It cannot be bribed. It cannot be seduced easily. You have already tasted emptiness and rejected it. You have already seen false paths and walked away. You have already lost things and discovered God was enough. That kind of faith is dangerous to Lucifer's agenda. He does not want you destroyed anymore. He wants you delayed. He wants you doubting. He wants you questioning your worth, your timing, your calling. Because if you step fully into who God is shaping you to be, you will liberate others simply by being yourself. And that is what darkness fears most. So hear me clearly. You are not imagining the resistance. You are not too sensitive. You are not cursed. You are becoming effective. Your light is expanding. And the dark realm responds only when something threatens its control. Stay grounded. Stay obedient. Stay aligned. Your light is not a target because it is weak. It is targeted because it is real. And I need you to hear this part slowly. Chosen one. Your light does not threaten the dark realm only because of who you are today, but because of who you are becoming. Darkness can sense growth before manifestation. It feels momentum before movement. That is why some attacks come before breakthroughs you cannot yet see. The enemy reacts to spiritual trajectory, not visible results. There are seasons when God increases your spiritual weight quietly. You may feel heavier emotionally, more thoughtful, more inward. That is not depression. That is depth forming. That is capacity expanding. And whenever capacity grows, opposition adjusts. Darkness does not wait until you arrive. It tries to interfere while you are in transition. But here is the truth that should calm your spirit. If your light were not protected, it would have been extinguished already. The fact that you are still here, still believing, still seeking God, still standing with integrity, means heaven has already placed boundaries around you. Lucifer can send shadows, but he cannot cross what God has sealed. So do not shrink your light to feel safe. Do not dim yourself to avoid attention. Light that hides becomes confused. Light that stands becomes authority. You were not chosen to survive quietly. You were chosen to remain aligned boldly. And alignment, chosen one, is what makes darkness tremble. Who the shadow beings really are. Chosen one, before fear tries to speak louder than truth, you need understanding. Darkness survives on misunderstanding. When people don't know what they're facing, they imagine things that steal their peace. So let me ground you right now. The shadow beings you sense are not what movies dramatize, and they are not more powerful than you. They are real, yes, but they are limited, restrained, and already judged. Shadow beings are not physical creatures roaming freely. They are manifestations of spiritual resistance. They operate in unseen spaces, through influence rather than form. They move through thoughts, environments, patterns, people, and emotional states. Their power is not in strength but in suggestion. They cannot create. They can only distort what already exists. These shadows originate from the same source all darkness does: rebellion against God. Lucifer does not rule a kingdom of creativity. He manages decay. He assigns disruption. Shadow beings are dispatched to interfere, not to conquer. Their assignment is delay, distraction, and discouragement. If they could destroy you, they would have already tried. The fact that they haven't tells you something important. You must stop imagining them as hunters chasing prey. That image makes you feel small. In truth, they operate more like parasites, attaching themselves to open doors. Emotional wounds, unresolved anger, chronic fear, self-doubt, exhaustion. These are the environments they prefer. They do not attach to light directly. They linger around cracks where light feels tired. This is why awareness matters. You don't defeat shadow beings by fighting them. You outgrow them by closing access. Darkness feeds where there is confusion. When clarity arrives, shadows lose shape. Now hear this carefully. Shadow beings often work through people who are unconscious of their influence. Not every resistance comes from an evil person. Many people are simply unguarded spiritually. They speak words that drain you. They bring confusion. They project insecurity. They pull you back into old versions of yourself. That does not make them your enemy, but it does mean discernment is required. Lucifer prefers subtlety. Loud chaos alerts people. Quiet erosion keeps them asleep. So shadow beings whisper thoughts like, maybe you're wrong, maybe you're behind, maybe God forgot you, maybe you should settle, maybe this is all pointless. They don't shout, they suggest, they repeat, they wait for agreement. Agreement is their entry point. This is why the battlefield has always been the mind. Long before physical events change, thoughts shift, moods shift, motivation weakens, faith feels heavy, prayer feels distant, not because God left, but because interference increased. Shadow beings aim to make spiritual disciplines feel burdensome. They want you disconnected, not destroyed. And here is something many people don't realize. Shadow beings are sent specifically to those who carry light strong enough to awaken others. They are not assigned randomly. They are strategic. They monitor growth. They study patterns. They observe what triggers you. Then they apply pressure in familiar areas. But chosen one, observation does not equal authority. They can watch, but they cannot command. They can influence, but they cannot override your will. You always have more power than you think because your power is not emotional. It is positional. You stand under God's authority, whether you feel it or not. This is why fear is their favorite tool. Fear lowers awareness. Fear shortens perspective. Fear makes temporary seasons feel permanent. Shadow beings want you reactive, not reflective. They want you rushed, not rooted. They want you questioning God instead of listening. But the more you mature spiritually, the less effective they become. Early in your journey, they used temptation. That worked for a while. Then they used distraction. That worked briefly. Now, they use fatigue, subtle discouragement, emotional heaviness without explanation, because overt attacks no longer work on you. That should tell you something. You've grown. Shadow beings cannot enter where peace is guarded. That is why they try to disrupt your rest. That is why your sleep, your solitude, your prayer time feels contested. Not because you are failing, but because those are your recharge points. Darkness targets supply lines, not fortresses. Let me say this clearly to calm you. Shadow beings are not allowed to touch your soul. That belongs to God. They can influence your emotions if you let them. They can cloud your thoughts if you don't challenge them. But they cannot claim you. They cannot redefine you. They cannot cancel what God has already spoken. They are shadows, not substance. Shadows only exist where light is present. Think about that. If there were no light in you, there would be no shadow following. Their presence is not proof of danger, it is proof of illumination. And here is the part that restores your authority. Shadow beings are not afraid of your effort, they are afraid of your alignment. When you are aligned with God, you become untouchable even when you feel tired, even when you feel unsure, even when you don't feel spiritual at all. Alignment is not emotional, it is covenant. Lucifer understands hierarchy. He knows who carries authority and who only speaks about it. That is why he sends shadows instead of confrontation. He avoids direct conflict with those who know who they are in God. He tries to wear them down instead. But endurance exposes him. Every time you choose peace over panic, a shadow loses ground. Every time you choose truth over assumption, its influence weakens. Every time you return to God instead of retreating inward, you reclaim territory. This is also why isolation has been such a theme in your life. Not all isolation is loneliness. Some of it is protection. God removes you from noisy environments so shadows lose camouflage. In silence, discernment sharpens. In solitude, you recognize what thoughts are yours and what thoughts were planted. Shadow beings hate clarity. They dissolve in it. So don't obsess over them. Obsession is attention, and attention gives energy. Awareness is enough. Calm awareness. Steady awareness. You acknowledge their tactics without fearing their presence. Chosen one, you were never meant to battle shadows. You were meant to outshine them. And the truth is, the brighter your light becomes, the less form they have. Eventually, they stop appearing altogether. Not because they left, but because they no longer have access. That is where you are headed. Not into fear, not into conflict, but into authority that is quiet, stable, and unshakable. And darkness knows it. How they try to drain, distract, and divert you. Chosen one, now that you understand who these shadow influences are, it's time to talk about how they operate against you on a daily level. Not to scare you, not to make you suspicious of everything, but to free you from confusion. Because once you can name a tactic, it loses power over your mind. Shadow beings rarely come with chaos anymore. You've grown past that stage. They don't need storms when a slow leak will do. Their goal is not dramatic destruction. Their goal is quiet erosion. To drain you little by little, to distract you just enough, to divert you slightly off course. Because they know even a small deviation, over time, can delay destiny. The first way they try to drain you is through mental fatigue. Not physical tiredness alone, but a weariness that sits in your thoughts. You wake up already heavy. Tasks that once felt simple now feel exhausting. You start questioning things you already resolved. Not because the answers changed, but because your energy did. This is not laziness. This is targeted pressure. Mental fatigue makes discernment harder. It shortens your patience. It makes prayer feel like effort instead of connection. Shadow influence loves when you say, "I'll deal with it later," because later often turns into distance, and distance over time weakens awareness. Another way they drain you is through emotional overload. Chosen ones feel deeply. That is not a flaw. That is part of your design. But darkness tries to use that depth against you. It piles unresolved emotions on top of each other. Old memories resurface without warning. Regret whispers at night. Guilt tries to rewrite your past. You start carrying feelings that are not meant to be carried all at once. Emotional overload does not come from one big event. It comes from accumulation. And when emotions pile up, clarity sinks. Shadow beings don't need to convince you of lies when they can simply exhaust your emotional capacity to process truth. Then comes distraction. And this one is subtle. Distraction doesn't always look like temptation. Sometimes it looks like responsibility, like overworking, like being busy for everyone else but unavailable to yourself. Your time gets filled, but your spirit feels empty. You are productive but disconnected. Distraction pulls you out of presence, and presence is where your power flows. When you are constantly rushing, constantly responding, constantly consuming, you stop listening. And shadow influence thrives in noise, not loud noise, mental noise. Notice how often distraction comes right before moments of spiritual growth, right before deeper prayer, right before clarity, right before rest. Suddenly something urgent appears, something pulls your attention outward. That is not accidental. Darkness does not mind if you believe in God, as long as you don't slow down enough to hear him. Diversion is the next step. Diversion is more dangerous than distraction because it feels meaningful. You start focusing on side missions, fixing people who don't want to change, fighting battles God never assigned you, proving yourself to those who will never understand you. You think you are being useful, but you feel drained afterward. Diversion pulls you into reaction mode. You begin responding to everything instead of moving intentionally. Shadow beings love when chosen ones are busy reacting, because reaction is always behind. Purpose is always ahead. Another tactic is isolation mixed with misunderstanding, not healthy solitude. That's different. This is the kind of isolation where you feel unseen, where you feel like no one truly understands you, where conversations feel shallow, where you begin to retreat emotionally, not to recharge, but to protect yourself. Shadow influence whispers, "No one gets you anyway, so why try?" That thought feels comforting at first, but over time, it hardens into loneliness. And loneliness, when unchecked, can distort perception. You begin interpreting silence as rejection, delay as denial, correction as attack. Chosen one, not every quiet season means abandonment. Sometimes it means recalibration. Darkness tries to turn necessary solitude into unnecessary isolation. One heals, the other drains. They also attempt to divert you through doubt that sounds reasonable, not loud doubt, logical doubt. Thoughts like, maybe you missed it, maybe you're behind, maybe this calling was just imagination, maybe others are chosen, not you. These thoughts don't feel evil, they feel practical. That's why they're dangerous. Reasonable doubt bypasses defense. It sneaks in disguised as wisdom, but true wisdom brings peace. If a thought steals your peace and shrinks your courage, it did not come from God. Shadow beings also target your identity through comparison. You begin measuring your progress against others, their timing, their visibility, their success. You forget that calling is personal, that God does not rush souls the same way he rushes systems. Comparison drains joy faster than almost anything else. When you compare, you stop appreciating your pace. You rush growth that requires patience. You overlook lessons meant to stabilize you. Darkness doesn't need you to fail. It only needs you dissatisfied with where you are. Another draining tactic is stirring guilt where grace should be. You start replaying past mistakes, old sins, missed opportunities. You think you should be further by now, that you wasted time, that God must be disappointed. But guilt that leads nowhere is not conviction. Conviction leads to repentance and peace. Lingering guilt leads to paralysis. Shadow beings love when you confuse the two. Diversion also happens through emotional entanglement. You carry burdens that are not yours. You feel responsible for fixing others, for keeping peace at your own expense, for staying connected to people who drain your spirit. You call it loyalty. God calls it misalignment. Chosen ones often confuse love with overextension. Darkness exploits that. It sends people who take without pouring back, situations that consume without restoring. You feel tired, but you tell yourself it's just part of being good. But God never called you to be drained. He called you to be fruitful. And here is the most subtle tactic of all. Shadow beings try to make you forget your victories. You focus on what's missing instead of what survived. You overlook how far you've come. You forget prayers that were answered quietly. growth that happened internally. Gratitude is dangerous to darkness. It grounds you. It stabilizes you. So distraction tries to keep you future-focused without appreciation. Always reaching, never resting. Chosen one, hear me clearly now. None of these tactics mean you are losing. They mean you are advancing. You don't fortify walls around empty land. You fortify what matters. The goal is not to make you fall. It's to make you tired enough to sit down, to pause long enough to question yourself, to divert long enough to delay momentum. But here is the truth that should settle your spirit. Awareness breaks cycles. The moment you recognize these patterns without fear, you reclaim authority. You stop reacting. You start choosing. Rest becomes resistance. Stillness becomes strength. Clarity becomes protection. You are not weak because you feel pressure. You are strong because you are still moving with integrity under it. And the more you learn to guard your peace, your thoughts, and your energy, the less access shadows have. They drain, they distract, they divert, but they cannot define you, and they cannot stop what God has already set in motion. Why God allows this pressure on you? Chosen one, this is the question your heart has whispered in quiet moments. If God loves me, if He chose me, if He walks with me, then why does He allow this pressure? Why not remove the resistance? Why not silence the opposition? Why not make the path easier? I want you to breathe and listen carefully now, because this understanding will heal something deep inside you. God allows pressure on you not because He doubts you, but because He trusts what He placed within you. Pressure is not proof of abandonment. Pressure is evidence of investment. Nothing valuable is left unguarded, and nothing powerful is left untested. God does not develop fragile vessels for eternal assignments. You see, there is a difference between protection and preparation. Protection keeps something safe. Preparation makes something strong. In the early stages of your life, God protected you more than you realized. There were things you were spared from, dangers you never saw, paths you were blocked from that would have destroyed you. But as you grew, God began to prepare you instead of shielding you from everything. Preparation requires resistance. Faith that has never been tested collapses under real responsibility. Love that has never been challenged becomes conditional. Obedience that has never been stretched remains shallow. God is not raising you to simply believe. He is raising you to carry weight. Spiritual weight. Emotional weight. Authority that does not panic when pressure rises. Pressure reveals what is rooted and what is borrowed. God allows pressure because it exposes where your strength truly comes from. When life is easy, people lean on comfort. When life is hard, the soul reveals its foundation. And God wants your foundation anchored in Him, not in outcomes, not in approval, not in timing that makes sense to humans. Chosen one, hear this truth without resentment. God does not explain every season because explanation would limit growth. If God told you everything in advance, you would prepare mentally, not spiritually. You would strategize, not surrender. And surrender is where real transformation happens. Pressure has a way of stripping illusions. It removes false confidence. It breaks reliance on external validation. It exposes habits that no longer serve your calling. Under pressure, you learn what truly matters, what you can live without, what you must protect at all costs. This is why God allows pressure specifically on chosen ones. Because your assignment is not surface level. You are meant to influence lives, not impress them. And influence requires depth. Depth only comes through seasons that force you inward. Think about this. Gold is not formed in comfort. Diamonds are not created without intense pressure. Oil is not released without crushing. God uses the same principle spiritually. He is not harming you, He is refining you. But refinement feels uncomfortable when you don't understand its purpose. There were moments when you prayed for growth, clarity, maturity, strength, purpose. God answered those prayers, but not in the way your mind expected. He did not give you instant confidence. He gave you situations that required courage. He did not give you instant peace. He gave you environments that forced you to choose peace. He did not give you instant wisdom. He allowed confusion until discernment developed. Pressure trains discernment. Without pressure, you would accept everything at face value. With pressure, you learn to pause, to question, to listen, to seek God before reacting. Pressure slows impulsive souls and strengthens intentional ones. God also allows pressure because of what is coming next. Future assignments require stability. Influence without stability becomes ego. Authority without humility becomes control. Visibility without grounding becomes destruction. God has seen many fall because they were elevated before they were anchored. So he anchors you now. Pressure also reveals what still needs healing. Unhealed wounds surface under stress. Old fears resurface when comfort disappears. Insecurity becomes loud when affirmation is removed. God allows this not to shame you, but to heal you fully. He does not want you carrying unresolved pain into places where it could contaminate others. You are not being punished for past mistakes. You are being cleaned of their residue. Another truth you must accept is this: God allows pressure because your life is meant to be a testimony, not just a blessing. People will not be inspired by what you avoided. They will be strengthened by what you endured with faith intact. Chosen one, your survival carries instruction. Your resilience carries authority. Your calm under pressure teaches others how to trust God when answers are delayed. If God removed all pressure, your story would lack credibility, not in heaven, but on earth. People relate to perseverance more than perfection. They learn from endurance more than ease. Pressure also teaches timing. It trains patience in a world addicted to immediacy. You learn to wait without quitting, to hope without proof, to obey without applause. That kind of patience is rare, and God only entrusts rare influence to those who can wait without bitterness. Bitterness is what pressure tries to produce, but humility is what God is cultivating. Notice how pressure has changed you. You pray differently now. You listen more than you speak. You choose your words carefully. You guard your energy. You no longer chase what once distracted you. These changes did not come from comfort. They came from resistance. God also allows pressure to separate you from people who cannot walk into your next season. Not everyone can handle your growth. Not everyone can celebrate your obedience. Pressure reveals who supports you for who you are, not for what you provide. Some connections fade under pressure. That hurts, but it also protects you. God removes what would have become a weight later. And here is the part that will settle your spirit if you let it. God never allows pressure without also supplying grace. The reason you're still standing is because grace has been sustaining you quietly. You may not feel strong, but you have been carried. You may not feel confident, but you have been preserved. Grace is not loud, it is consistent. If this pressure were meant to destroy you, you would already be gone. The fact that you are still seeking God, still choosing integrity, still longing for purpose, is proof that the pressure is working for you, not against you. God allows pressure on you because he sees the version of you that pressure is producing. Stronger, calmer, more discerning, less reactive, more rooted. And when this season lifts, and it will, you will not just be relieved. You will be ready. Ready to carry more light. Ready to walk with authority. Ready to help others without losing yourself. So do not ask why this pressure exists anymore. Ask what it is building. And trust that God, who began this work in you, is faithful to complete it. You are not under pressure by accident. You are under preparation by design. And let me add this, chosen one, because this is where many misunderstand God's heart. Pressure is not God testing whether you will fail. God already knows what is in you. Pressure is God revealing to you what is in you. Until pressure comes, strength remains hidden. Endurance remains theoretical. Faith remains an idea. But under pressure, faith becomes experience. There are prayers God cannot answer without first allowing pressure. You ask to be trusted with more clarity, more influence, more spiritual authority. But authority without endurance collapses. So God allows resistance to train your nervous system to stay calm, your spirit to stay anchored, and your mind to stay sober, even when outcomes are uncertain. Pressure also teaches you how to hear God without emotional confirmation. In earlier seasons, you felt God strongly. Now you trust Him deeply. That shift is intentional. Feelings fade. Covenant remains. God is teaching you to walk by alignment, not sensation. And here is the comfort you must hold on to. God is not watching you struggle from a distance. He is present within the pressure. Every tear you didn't understand, every moment you held yourself together quietly, every time you chose obedience over escape, heaven recorded it. Nothing in this season is wasted. Not 1 ounce of pressure, not 1 moment of endurance. You are not being delayed, you are being fortified. How to stand in your light without fear. Chosen one, this is where everything shifts. Understanding the pressure is one thing, enduring it is another. But learning how to stand in your light without fear is where authority is born. Not forced authority, not loud authority, but the kind that settles your spirit and quiets the environment around you. Let me say this plainly. Fear is not removed by courage. Fear is removed by clarity. When you know who you are, fear loses its argument. Standing in your light does not mean you become aggressive or defensive. It does not mean you announce yourself or prove anything to anyone. Light does not explain itself. It reveals. And revelation happens naturally when you remain aligned. The first way you stand in your light without fear is by understanding that your authority is not emotional. Some days you will feel strong. Other days you will feel uncertain. Your authority does not fluctuate with your feelings. It is positional. You are under God's covering whether you feel spiritual or not, whether your prayers feel powerful or quiet, whether your faith feels fiery or tired. Stop measuring your strength by your emotions. Emotions are weather. Alignment is climate. Fear often enters when you believe you must maintain your light through effort. That is exhausting. Your job is not to generate light. God is the source. Your job is to remain connected. When you stop striving to be strong and start trusting God to be faithful, fear begins to loosen its grip. Standing in your light also requires discernment, not confrontation. Not every disturbance requires a response. Not every misunderstanding requires correction. Not every challenge is your assignment. Darkness loves to pull chosen ones into unnecessary battles because battles drain energy. Discernment conserves it. Silence, when chosen wisely, is strength. Peace, when guarded intentionally, is authority. Another key is learning to stay present. Fear lives in the future. Regret lives in the past. Light operates now. When you remain present, fear has nowhere to anchor. This is why prayer does not always involve words. Sometimes it is awareness, stillness, breathing, returning to the moment God placed you in. Presence grounds you in reality. Fear feeds on imagination. You also stand in your light by choosing rest without guilt. This is important. Many chosen ones believe rest is weakness. That belief is dangerous. Exhaustion does not make you holy. Burnout does not make you faithful. God did not call you to run endlessly. He called you to abide. Rest recalibrates your nervous system. It clears mental noise. It sharpens discernment. When you are rested, fear loses leverage because your mind is no longer overwhelmed. Darkness wants you tired. God wants you steady. Standing in your light without fear also means guarding your inputs. What you listen to, what you watch, what conversations you entertain, what environments you remain in. You cannot shine clearly if your mind is constantly cluttered with noise that contradicts truth. This is not about isolation. It is about intentional exposure. You choose what nourishes you. You limit what drains you. That is not selfish. That is stewardship. Another powerful way to stand without fear is to stop internalizing resistance. Not everyone who misunderstands you is attacking you. Not every closed door is rejection. Not every delay is denial. When you internalize every challenge, fear multiplies. When you interpret wisely, peace remains. Ask yourself often, is this mine to carry? Many things are not. Standing in your light also requires humility. And humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking less about yourself. Fear grows when self-focus increases. When you are constantly monitoring how you are perceived, how you are progressing, how you are performing, anxiety creeps in. Humility redirects your focus toward obedience instead of outcome. You do what God asks today. You leave tomorrow in His hands. That posture keeps fear from ruling your thoughts. Prayer is also central here, but not the kind driven by panic. Prayer rooted in fear reinforces fear. Prayer rooted in alignment reinforces trust. Speak to God honestly, without performance, without pretending. Let your prayer be conversation, not ceremony. Sometimes the most powerful prayer is simple. God, I trust you here. God, lead me. God, I surrender this moment. Standing in your light means you stop negotiating with fear. Fear will always ask for reassurance, proof, control, certainty. But faith does not negotiate. It moves forward with incomplete information because it trusts the source. You do not wait for fear to leave before you act. You act aligned, and fear follows. Another truth you must embrace is this. You are allowed to be gentle and strong at the same time. Many chosen ones believe strength requires hardness. That is not true. God preserved your softness for a reason. Compassion does not weaken authority, it refines it. Darkness wants to harden you. God wants to ground you. When you stand in your light, you also accept that not everyone will celebrate your peace. Some people are uncomfortable around calm because chaos validates them. Do not shrink your peace to make others comfortable. Your calm is not arrogance, it is evidence of trust. Fear also loses power when you stop over-explaining yourself. You do not owe clarity to those committed to misunderstanding you. Explanation is often a form of seeking approval. Approval seeking feeds fear. Alignment dissolves it. You are allowed to be misunderstood and still be right with God. Standing in your light means you accept seasons of invisibility without panic. There are times God hides His strongest work beneath the surface. Roots grow in darkness. Visibility comes later. Fear rushes. Wisdom waits. Trusting God's timing is one of the highest forms of spiritual maturity. Let me remind you of something important. You are not standing alone. Even when you feel solitary, you are surrounded by unseen support. God's presence does not fluctuate with your awareness. He is near in silence as much as in breakthrough. Fear tells you that you are exposed. Truth tells you that you are covered. Finally, standing in your light without fear means you stop asking if you are enough. That question comes from insecurity, not humility. God does not call the sufficient. He supplies those He calls. Your responsibility is obedience. His responsibility is outcome. You do not need to feel ready. You need to be willing. Chosen one, fear will visit. It always does. But it does not have to stay. Each time you choose alignment over anxiety, truth over assumption, peace over panic, you strengthen your spiritual posture. And over time, fear stops knocking. Not because life becomes easy, but because you become anchored. You are learning to stand, not in your own strength, but in God's presence. And that is the safest place you could ever be. The shift that is already happening for you. Chosen one, if you slow your breathing and become honest with yourself for a moment, you will realize something important. Even with the pressure, even with the resistance, even with the unanswered questions, something in you has already shifted. You are not the same person you were before this season began, and that change did not happen by accident. Spiritual shifts rarely announce themselves. They happen quietly, beneath the surface, long before the environment reflects them. Most people expect change to look dramatic. God prefers it to be stable. That is why this shift feels subtle. It is not loud. It is grounded. You think differently now. You pause before reacting. You question impulses that once controlled you. You no longer chase validation the way you used to. Peace matters more than proving a point. That is not weakness. That is maturity forming. One of the first signs of this shift is your relationship with silence. Silence no longer scares you. It reveals. You are less desperate to fill space with noise. You are more comfortable being alone with your thoughts. That tells me God has strengthened your inner foundation. You are no longer afraid of what surfaces when distractions are removed. Another sign is how you handle disappointment. Things still hurt, yes, but they do not shatter you. You recover faster. You process instead of suppress. You allow emotions to pass instead of letting them define you. That is growth. Emotional resilience does not mean numbness. It means stability. This shift is also evident in your discernment. You see through things faster now. Patterns, motives, cycles. You no longer need repeated pain to recognize misalignment. You feel it early. That is God sharpening your perception so you waste less time in places that drain you. And notice this. You are less interested in convincing people. You explain less. You observe more. You listen with intention. You choose your words carefully. That tells me your identity is no longer up for negotiation. When identity settles, the need to perform fades. Another shift is happening in how you experience God. You may not feel intense emotion every time you pray anymore, but your trust runs deeper. You no longer panic when God is quiet. You rest, you wait, you listen. That is a sign of relational maturity. Infants cry when silence comes. Adults trust presence without noise. God is teaching you how to walk by alignment, not sensation. There is also a separation taking place. Some relationships feel distant. Some conversations feel forced. Some environments feel heavy now. That does not mean you are superior. It means you are no longer compatible with certain frequencies. Growth creates distance naturally. And this separation is protective. God removes you from what would have distracted you in the next season. He prunes to preserve energy. Loss does not always mean punishment. Sometimes it is preparation. You may also notice that your desires are changing. Things that once excited you feel empty now. You crave meaning more than excitement, depth more than novelty, truth more than approval. That is not boredom, that is refinement. This shift is also happening in how you view time. You are less rushed, less frantic. You understand now that delay is not denial, that waiting does not mean stagnation. God has taught you patience not by explanation, but by experience. And here is something powerful. Your prayers are becoming simpler, less performative, more honest. You talk to God like someone you trust, not someone you are trying to impress. That tells me intimacy has replaced insecurity. Even your battles have changed. You argue less. You disengage faster. You protect your peace. You choose rest over reaction. That is not avoidance. That is wisdom. You finally understand that not every fight proves strength. Some fights prove immaturity. You are also becoming more selective with your energy. You say no without guilt. You step back without over-explaining. You choose solitude without loneliness. That is emotional health forming. This shift is happening because you survived the refining season without hardening your heart. Many people survive pressure by becoming bitter. You survived by becoming grounded. That is rare. And God sees it. You may not feel victorious yet. But victory is not always loud. Sometimes it is simply not collapsing under weight that once would have crushed you. God is repositioning you. Quietly. Strategically. He is aligning you with what matches the person you have become, not the person you were. New opportunities will come that do not require you to betray your peace. New connections will feel effortless. New assignments will feel aligned, not forced. The reason things feel slow right now is because God is synchronizing timing. Rushed elevation leads to unstable outcomes. God is precise, and precision requires patience. You are closer than you think, not to success as the world defines it, but to alignment as heaven intended it. The shift has already begun internally. External change will follow. Chosen one, do not underestimate what God has already done in you just because others cannot see it yet. Roots grow underground. Strength forms in hidden places. And when it is time for you to rise, you will not wobble. You will stand, calm, clear, anchored. This shift is not coming. It is already happening. And the peace you are starting to feel is your confirmation. Chosen one, let me take you a little deeper, because this shift is more profound than you realize. You may have noticed that what used to trigger you no longer has the same grip. Situations that once stole your sleep now pass through your mind without taking residence. You still care, but you no longer cling. That balance did not come from willpower. It came from healing. God has been rewiring how you process stress, disappointment, and uncertainty. Another sign of the shift is that you are less reactive to spiritual noise. Opinions don't shake you like they used to. Conflicting voices don't confuse you as easily. You are learning to recognize God's voice not by volume, but by consistency. His guidance brings clarity, not chaos. And now, you trust that. You're also becoming more comfortable with being unseen. There was a time you wanted recognition for your growth. Now, you value peace more than applause. That is a powerful indicator of readiness. God can trust those who don't need constant affirmation. When humility stabilizes the heart, promotion becomes safe. There is also a quiet courage forming in you, not the kind that rushes into danger, but the kind that remains steady when outcomes are uncertain. You are learning to move forward even when clarity is partial. That is faith in action, not theory. And here is the most important part. You are beginning to trust yourself again, not in ego, but in discernment. You trust the wisdom God has grown in you. You trust the pause. You trust the no. You trust the timing. That inner trust is evidence that God has restored something the pressure tried to fracture. So, if things feel oddly calm right now, even before everything changes, hold on to that. Calm is not stagnation. Calm is readiness. The shift is real. The foundation is set. And what comes next will meet a version of you that is no longer fragile. You didn't just survive this season, you were transformed by it. Conclusion. You were never unprotected. Chosen one, I want you to sit with this truth as we close. You were never unprotected, not for one moment. Even in seasons where you felt exposed, confused, or worn down, God's hand never left you. What you interpreted as vulnerability was actually refinement. What felt like isolation was divine coverage. What felt like delay was precise timing. The shadows may have watched, they may have followed, they may have attempted to interfere, but they were never in control. God set boundaries long before you were aware of the battle. Your light was never left uncovered. Heaven has been guarding you quietly, consistently, faithfully. You are still standing because you were never meant to fall. You endured because grace carried you when strength ran low. You matured because pressure shaped you, not because it defeated you. And now, you are stepping into a season where fear no longer has authority over your decisions. Remember this. Darkness does not chase what it can control. Resistance does not surround what is insignificant. And pressure does not refine what has no purpose. You were targeted because you carry light that matters, so walk forward without shrinking. Rest without guilt. Trust without panic. You do not need to rush what God has already secured. Your assignment is intact. Your calling is protected. Your future is still unfolding exactly as it should. If this message resonated with your spirit, chosen one, take a moment now to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share it with other chosen ones who need this reminder today. and comment 777 below as a declaration that you are aligned, protected, and walking boldly in the light God placed within you. Stay anchored, stay faithful. You were never unprotected.